I know you're all here for the Made by Middleton Nakiri review and knife raffle, so let's get right into it. Good day everyone and welcome back to the channel. As it says in the name of the video, no, it is not clickbait. Today not only are we doing a Made by Middleton Nakiri review from the Echo line, but we are also going to be talking about a knife raffle. Now if you don't know me, my name is Franco Allo and this channel is all about knife knowledge, reviews, unboxings, and head-to-heads. And today is all about this Made by Middleton 6-inch Nakiri from the Echo line with beautiful dyed birch veneer for the handle with rivets, of course, yo style or Western handle style. So let's get right into who Quintin Middleton is before we talk about the knife raffle. Honestly, as I said in my last video, if you haven't seen, I already put a knife review about his paring knife from the Echo line. I might have said Eco the first time. Point is, some other channel has made a better video than I could ever make of Quintin Middleton, and so those videos will be linked in the video description below. But in essence, Quintin Middleton is an American bladesmith from St. Stephen's, South Carolina. So the way we are going to be doing this video is going to be simple. Next, we're going to talk about the knife raffle instructions. Then after that, you're going to be seeing a food demo from this Nakiri. And after that, you'll be getting the, of course, knife review. Now, all the specifications of this blade will be also in the video description below. But first, let's talk knife raffle. So, easy peasy. This is what you got to do to enter the knife raffle. But before I even talk about the knife raffle, though this is part of the knife raffle, what I want you to know is that despite how many entries we're going to get, Quintin and I have decided that 100% of the funds collected will be donated to an organization of our choosing. And the organization we chose, because this is a cause that is close to both our hearts, is going to be the Canadian Breast Cancer Network. I can't speak for Quintin, but I know that in my family, I have had a few family members pass from breast cancer, and so it is a prevalent cancer. And to be honest, in nature, cancer is a dominant force. There's not always going to be a treatment for it. A treatment might not always work for a certain patient, and so beating cancer is something that I know we'd all like, a little bit like world peace, but honestly guys, the reality is cancer is just part of nature, and so the reason I like this network is because it's not focused so much on trying to beat the cancer as much as saying, look, some people will have breast cancer and maybe they won't find an effective way to get rid of it. They're going to have to live with it. So how can we increase their quality of life? So again, 100% of funds amassed from this knife raffle will go to the Canadian Breast Cancer Network. Now to enter the knife raffle, to win this 6-inch Nakiri from the Echo line, a Quintin Middleton knife, all you got to do is send $20 Canadian, so specifically, again, I'm going to say it, $20 Canadian to my PayPal address, frankusallo@hotmail.com. It's up here on the screen. Please put friends and family so that that amount isn't taxed on top of it. And whatever amount we collect, again, will be donated in full to the Canadian Breast Cancer Network. They don't even know this is coming. I hope we can impress them with a bit of a hefty amount. This knife has a value otherwise of 200 USD, and so the knife raffle, sure, it might be 10% of the cost of this knife, but just think during the holidays, this is a time where typically we think about buying things for ourselves. Instead, let's try to give back $20. You can probably get away with not even noticing it at the end of the month, and it is going towards a good cause. So again, that is the knife raffle instructions. In terms of the length of the raffle, I'll probably wait a week to see how many raffle entries we have. You can also enter more than once if you desire to. And then I think by the last video, so next week, I'll be doing a knife review on the Echo line chef's knife, which is an 8-inch chef's knife from Made by Middleton. And then the week after that will be the final knife review on the Ona. I know lots of people want to see that one. By then, I will announce the winner. And as you know, guys, I like to be transparent. And so I'll be showing you the process, number of entries, and then who the random generator chose. Now that that's out of the way, before we get into the knife review, let's get into the food demo, and then I'll come back and let you know what I think. Alright, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that food demo. So let's start breaking down what I think about this Nakiri. First and foremost, it is 6 inches. So for those Japanese knife enthusiasts out there that only understand knife measurements in millimeters, that's a little bit over 150 millimeters. And most of you also know that typically the most abundant Japanese petty is about 150 millimeters as well. So this is just a little bit longer, which falls a little bit short in your typical Japanese 165 millimeter Nakiri. Why am I talking about Japanese kitchen knives when I'm holding an American blade? Well, again, it's because I know lots of people that come to this channel are interested in the Japanese kitchen knife aspect of my reviews, so just trying to kind of bridge the gap so you get an understanding. Now, this knife, as you saw in my last knife review, it is part of a set of 3 from the Echo line. So this is the second knife, the 6-inch Nakiri. In terms of blade depth, what you'll find interesting with the reviews to come is that belly height at heel, and you'll see this in the video description below if you want the actual dimensions, but between the Nakiri, between the 8-inch chef's knife, and between the Ona, they're all about the same belly height at heel, and they differ by ½ a millimeter or 1 at most if I remember my measurements correctly. So what's going to be cool as you watch this review and the future ones is that you all have the same belly height for the next 3 knives, but of course the profile is so different that it leads to a different performance, as well of course as the general blade style geometry difference. Now the handle is a lot like the paring knife. It feels great in hand. It has that Coke bottle geometry. It has that bulge in the middle, which makes it super comfortable to hold. This knife, just like the paring knife, also feels incredibly light and nimble, but compared to the paring knife, which had a very short blade length and a bulkier handle, which made it handle heavy, this one is so well balanced that, again, unlike the paring knife, which I did not like the pinch grip because of where the balance point was, here not only can I comfortably pinch grip, but Quintin added that beautiful, beautiful finger choil, which makes it very enjoyable. Now the handle construction, again, is like the paring knife and like the chef's knife. It's all part of the Echo line, so that's going to be dyed birch veneers. The rivets and the full tang stick out just a little bit, but again, I don't think this is a fault of craftsmanship or Quintin, or at least I can't say that with certainty, because any other knife that I have behind the camera that's either Western handle or it has something like a metal spacer, they all stick out of the handle despite knowing how reputable those smiths are. I just think it's the Edmonton dry climate that leads to the wood shrinking. Metal doesn't shrink, and so that's why it sticks out a little bit. Now, as you saw with the food demo, one of the ingredients which this knife did not handle particularly well would be the cherry tomatoes. Bell peppers too tend to require the same type of cutting edge than a cherry tomato, and I talk about this a lot in my videos. Cherry tomatoes I cut lots of in a week because I'm a big salad guy, and the difficulty of cutting a cherry tomato successfully and with ease is because a cherry tomato is this package, essentially, just call it package of juice, right, within a shell that is quite taut. And so it's almost like you need a separate set of teeth to first bite into the skin delicately without having the juice, the insides erupt out, and then you need to be delicate enough while cutting through the flesh that not everything spills out. And so where I think this knife lacks for cherry tomatoes is because, like the paring knife, it is a V-grind, but again, unlike the paring knife, the difference now is going to be in that belly height. I think that the cutting edge of this knife, preference of mine, I would like it to be a little bit toothier. Now, I'm not sure how this knife was finished in terms of belt grinds or what the grit of that is, but I can tell you in the test kitchen, on the cutting board, because that's what matters at the end of the day. It's not numbers, it's how's it acting here. I think essentially it could have been a little bit more effective if it had a bit of a toothier edge. That would help with bell pepper, would help with cherry tomato. As you also probably noticed from the food demo, compared to the paring knife, this knife did not have as great food release. And again, I think it goes back to that V-grind. So the V-grind is quite wide, right? It's a little bit like an axe. But there's a lot of steel above that primary bevel. So I think this knife, though being relatively thin at the spine, would benefit from having a shallower angle going higher up. I think that might also help with the food release, because with the paring knife, even though you have that V edge, because it has so little steel above it, as you're cutting through any ingredient, and the ingredient, like my hands does, kind of just splits open, even if it wanted to kind of wrap around the blade, By the time it wants to do that, the blade is completely through and there's nothing to stick on. Whereas with the Nakiri, say, honestly, like an onion, it was as high as my hand. It splits open, and then it wants to close again as your blade is working its way down. And then if it touches the blade, well, it's going to stick. And so that's why I think the food release on the Nakiri isn't as good as the one on the paring knife. For Brussels sprouts, for onions, vertical slices, this was also absolutely fantastic. As you saw with the red onion, those horizontal slits, I think again, because of how thick the blade is and how short that primary bevel is, it was a little bit more difficult for those lateral slices. Again, I think that can be adjusted with just a bit of a taller grind on that primary bevel. Otherwise, this knife has been super enjoyable to use. Again, light, nimble, comfortable, well balanced. In fact, I never checked the balance point. So it is still going to be probably a little handle heavy, or actually, is it right on the choil? Ooh, I caution to let go. But maybe that's why I've enjoyed using this knife so much. So it's balanced essentially on the choil, right at that junction between handle and finger notch. And so that's why it's been super fun to use. Even when you finger pinch it, you can still feel that Coke bottle grip. And it's really, really fantastic. The blade profile is great too, because Nakiri is a vegetable knife. What we always talk about when we help people choose what's the next knife that you should add to your collection, we ask, well, what are you going to be cutting with it? What do you mainly cut with it? If the answer is vegetables, Nakiri is a bit of an all-purpose knife for that. This Nakiri blade profile is fairly flat, but also not so flat at the heel and not so flat at the tip. It curves up just slightly, which means this is a great Nakiri for rock chopping as well, not just push cutting. As you'll see up on screen, Nakiris can have completely different profiles, right? To call it a Nakiri just means that you're expecting a certain belly height, and in terms of blade profile, it's going to be flat. But like the Nordquist Nakiri that you see on screen, flat also doesn't mean that it's going to be parallel to the handle, right? In the choice of Jesse from Nordquist Designs that he made for the design of his knife, he chose to go with an angle that's, I don't know, more akin to 20 degrees from parallel. So super cool that with Nakiris or just with bladesmiths that are open-minded, you can end up with various profiles, but still call it, in essence, a Nakiri. And so this knife, again, as you saw, has been a complete joy to use. It's nimble. So I want to be clear. I think this is an absolutely high-performing knife. But if I don't break it down to the atom, then what's the point, right? So again, Quintin, this is a fantastic knife, but I do think, and I know you probably wouldn't do this because from the manufacturing standpoint, it doesn't make sense. But if somehow you could add more bite to the cutting edge and narrow the bevel, I think it might fly through onions' horizontal slits a bit better. It might pierce through cherry tomatoes better. Other than that, cutting mushrooms, cutting Brussels sprouts was absolutely fantastic. This knife, a little bit like the paring knife, I think is still geared to that entry-level user that's moving from factory-made knife to a handmade knife. The price point still makes sense at 200 USD. I think it's 200 USD. If I'm wrong, I'll put it up on screen. 200 USD. The other recommendation I might make, if Quintin wanted to continue having this be part of the kit, I'm not sure what type of feedback he's gotten, but earlier on I did mention how it's just a little bit above 150 millimeters. I think so, right? Hey Google, what's 6 inches in millimeters?
6 inches is 152.4 millimeters.
152.4 millimeters. I'm used to 165, so maybe this is coming just from my own personal experiences. I always found 165 millimeter Nakiris to even be a little bit short for what you need. You need to cut cabbage, you need to cut a squash, you need to cut even an eggplant obliquely. It's a little short, but 165 is still the most common. So rather than 150, which is nice, which is nimble, I would maybe advise to get closer at 165, or heck, push it to 180, a little bit like the Nordquist Designs Nakiri. I find that to be almost a perfect length for just about anything. And if the grind is thin and the handle is light, like this one already is, then it's still going to be a super light, nimble, enjoyable knife to use. Also forgot to mention, but of course it's in the video description below, that this knife is made out of AEB-L steel. interrupting this special broadcast to say I really don't want people to think that I'm shitting on V-grinds, because that is not what I'm doing. V-grinds absolutely have their place in the knife industry for one main reason. It makes the knife more resilient, and from the user perspective, that's also a more user-friendly knife. So yes, in this case, a thinner grind might, to me, increase the performance of this Nakiri on something like an onion, but at the same time, I'm going to show you some footage. I decided to use this knife on a block of cheddar cheese. I would never do that with some of my fine Japanese kitchen knives, because any little bit of tweakage, even maybe from the high stick potential of cheese, might cause it to chip. Here, I was super confident that I could use a Nakiri, even just to cut cheese. So V-grinds absolutely have their place, and my opinion is my own. I'm just making a recommendation based on the type of knife that I like to use, and no way is that a reflection of the capacity of this knife. And so remember, if you want to be part of the knife raffle, just send $20 to frankusallo@hotmail.com through PayPal. Friends and family, and within a week and a half to 2 weeks, I'll announce the winner. Shipping will be on me, by the way, so that's something I didn't mention. I don't care where you live. If you win, you win. To me, that $20 entry, that's the price of shipping. I will pay shipping. Happy holidays type thing. Thanks again for joining us. Next week, we'll be reviewing the Made by Middleton 8-inch chef's knife. That'll be the last knife that was sent to me from the Echo line. And after that, apparently everyone wants to know about the Ona, so we're going to learn about the Ona. Thanks again, and see you next time.